Right now, we got to learn about the Zelensky blowback. As soon as Zelensky got kicked out of the White House last week, he went running over to Keir Starmer over in the UK, the place where Boris Johnson a couple years ago said no joy on the ceasefire. There was a ceasefire a couple years ago proposed, and the UK told Zelensky, no, you must keep fighting. We're funding this war. We're arming you. You have to keep fighting. So when Trump says, get out of here, you're not even getting lunch, the press is going to eat your lunch today, he gets kicked out. Next thing you know, he's with Keir Starmer. And next thing you know, he's with Bibi, and he's wearing a suit, almost as if he read the room finally. Or he just understands the nature of how things work. You know, you can wear your jumpsuit to meet with Trump, but to meet with Bibi, you got to put on the real suit and be the monkey boy over there. All right, so with all that being said, there's still a lot of ups and downs with Palestine and the Ukraine situation. There's a lot of U.S. money, U.S. armaments going into these situations. Maybe it's on hold right now in Ukraine. Maybe it's not. Maybe they just did one thing to get a mineral deal, and there's a bunch of sleight of hand going on, so we're going to have to take a look at that. We have a piece in here from Fox News. Trump fires back at Zelensky. America will not put up with this. That sets the frame. And then to fill in the picture, we've got really graceful. What the media won't tell you about Volodymyr Zelensky. He's got two Y's all of a sudden on the end of his name. In the last year or so, two Y's very popular when you say Zelensky, as opposed to Zelensky Motors, where, you can get your Callahan brake pads. All right. Trump cracks down on free speech. It's not all good stuff he's doing, right? So we got to take a look at that because you can now say the word retarded, but you can't speak positively for Palestinians. So we're going to waive free speech. That's a Taibbi and Jimmy Dore clip. And then we'll be back to change the topic. We got a lot of other news to cover. So let's get through this Zelensky Ukraine section and see what we can learn about our free speech.
President Trump hitting back at Ukrainian President Zelensky just a short time ago on President Zelensky's comments in London yesterday during a briefing where he said, quote, an agreement to end the war is still very, very far away, and no one has started all these steps yet. President Trump responded to Zelensky by saying, quote, this is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelensky, and America will not put up with it for much longer. It is what I was saying. This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has America's backing, and Europe, in the meeting they had with Zelensky, stated flatly that they cannot do the job without the U.S. Probably not a great statement to have been made in terms of show of strength against Russia.
Shouldn't we all be happy that we have a president who's trying to stop wars and prevent them instead of start them? And I just don't get it. I really don't, other than the fact that it's Donald J. Trump. If this was a Democrat that was doing this, everyone would be saying, well, he's on his way to the Nobel Peace Prize. This is absurd. We are trying to end a war. You cannot end a war unless both sides come to the table, starting with the Russians. If there are no negotiations, what is the alternative? Another 4 years of war, another 3 years of war in which the United States and Europe continues to pour billions of dollars into a war in Ukraine? Is that the alternative?
Hey, Internet friends. Do you remember when the media began pushing support for Ukraine? Here in North Georgia, seemingly overnight, Ukrainian flags began popping up along the countryside. In the church signs spelled out, pray for Ukraine. Online, any criticism of Ukraine was either censored or labeled as Russian propaganda. And supporting Ukraine began to be framed as more than a choice in another forever war, but as a signal of virtue in the American political landscape. Then, all of a sudden, the president of Ukraine, a country nearly the size of Texas, had a full propaganda campaign behind him. Framed as the underdog in his valiant fight against Russia, the biggest boogeyman of the last several decades. But what are American citizens really signing up for when our government completely backs this one country? Where are our tax dollars really going? What is this war really about?
We already talked about at the top of the show, Matt, about your great work exposing the industrial complex, the censorship industrial complex, and you're very sensitive to this because you're a leading journalist, and you've had the IRS try to intimidate you into not saying certain things, and I've been censored. I've been, my own tax dollars have been used to sponsor Vox Ukraine Media, which did hit pieces on me to try to get me demonetized and kicked off YouTube. So I'm sensitive to that. And so Trump might want to protect certain speech, but now he's doing this, which is just the opposite. And so you being sensitive to something like this, how would you respond to it?
Well, I'm against it. I mean, when he signed the executive order, and then there was the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act that got passed last year, and then this thing this year, which is really just an extension of that. It's, to me, a clear First Amendment issue. Normally what they would do, right? Like if you wanted to be really aggressive about Palestinian protesters and stay within the letter of the law, you wouldn't say that we're throwing you out of the country because of your protests, right? They would round people up who had committed crimes, and then they would deport them, which is what they're doing in other areas. But you can't say that you're doing it for that reason. I think the Trump, by doing this, is making a huge political mistake, or a potentially huge one. The Democrats have gifted the First Amendment to the Republicans,
yes,
for a generation, really. I mean, they were so bad on this issue that they could run on this forever. All they have to do is just show basic respect.
I tried to get VIP tickets for Jimmy Dore in Hartford, and I'm thankful that they're all sold out, because I don't need to have a VIP ticket to meet him. Though, if you get VIP tickets, you get to meet the talent. I know Kurt, so I'm going to send the underground history of Israel-Palestine to Kurt, see if he can get Jimmy to watch it before Jimmy comes to Hartford, and then maybe I can do a little 5-minute interview with Jimmy. We can be on the same page about that. Very important topic of free speech and censorship.
That's a good strategy.
A lot to dig into.
Yeah, I love it, man. Like networking, that's what it's all about, man. That's cool.
All right, so we have a new Grand Theft World website coming to you guys this week. It plugs in, I think I approve it on Tuesday coming this week. And by Wednesday, Thursday, you guys should be able to see it. I've seen it. It's very impressive. It's very functional. You'll be able to watch the live show plugged in. It's all very smooth and polished. And we deserve that, because we have the finest audience in the world. We have people who like to pay attention to detail and understand the big picture. And that takes a longer attention span than most of the people on the planet can muster. So you are part of the few, the proud, the people who can make it through a Grand Theft World episode, and ye shall be rewarded in a variety of ways. I'm not optimistic on Trump changing his position on the Israel situation until more people can intelligently articulate what's going on and bridge that gap. It's a very charged and kind of incendiary topic, and both sides seem to have decided without having to look at the other side's evidence. So I see that as being far off from being resolved, but it happens step by step, and then big progress is made in small amounts of time, right? So those are it's part of the landscape of history. Don't get down just because you're watching it week to week. You got to look at the overarching patterns that they're laying out there.
Yeah, I know. I know some trust the plan people, and it's like they're saying this is all going perfectly according to plan, which it has been for a long time, and I just can't quite get there.
Yeah.
But it's like I didn't vote for Trump because of the vaccine stuff and his Israel stuff. Like I can't put my life energy and spiritual energy behind that. Can't do it.
And the last two Democratic candidates that were women who weren't voted in. They stole it from, in both cases, a white guy who actually had the votes of the party. And had they not done that, those who are suffering Trump wouldn't be suffering Trump again. Because, that's a thing that's going on.
Yeah. And to be clear, I didn't vote for Kamala. I just didn't vote. So just don't want any narratives out there.
When you discover that the steering wheel is not determining the direction of the car, it's time to be hands-off driving. That's the rule there.
It's like in the Simpsons opening credits, where it's like Maggie's in the passenger seat. one of those little wheels that goes in the passenger seat. Like that's
Well,
us,
you know,
folks.
when I interviewed Lee Camp and I repeated that back to him, he told me that was a joke that he wrote like in 2013. So until I find my footage of me saying it first, I acquiesce to him and his comedic talents because I don't need to be a comedian or take credit for stuff that other people did. So more Lee Camp, where there was another unredacted with Lee Camp this week that was excellent. It was more like his classic work from like 10 years ago. It was very well composed and cut together. It was funny in a Charlie Brooker type of way. But I lost that clip, and there's a whole bunch of clips we're not even going to be able to get to in tonight's outline because we have a little special treat for people who didn't make the screening on Friday. Now, some of you are not familiar with the documentary film stylings and comedic endeavors of Paul Verge, but you know he's been showing up for the show. He's been to town hall. But I wanted to take tonight as a little opportunity not only to shine a spotlight on the history of they, them, those who corrupted our education system and turned it into a schooling indoctrination system, but also the entrepreneurial nature of, in the face of a place that does not want you to publish and proliferate this type of information, in a time of censorship, in a time where conspiracy theorist is used as a pejorative so that people don't have to go through the circuit of thinking and processing, intrepid young filmmakers like myself and Paul Verge, and in this clip that you're going to see, there's also James Corbett, there's John Irvin, there's a whole bunch of people who were on the spot calling things like they were and kind of being the voice in the wilderness that no one was hearing yet. Now, thanks to COVID, a lot more people are interested in the deep state and who corrupted our education system and how do we get things back online, because if we don't have people that can solve the problems in front of them, we're not going to have much freedom. We're going to be guaranteed dependence, subservience, tyranny, and despotism, because that's what people tolerate when they don't know how to be self-reliant. When they don't know how to protect themselves, they have to wait 5 to 15 minutes for the police to come take a report, right? You heard earlier tonight, police don't have teleporters, right? They don't get there instantly. You are responsible for your personal protection, your family's protection, these sort of things. Physical protection is a very small percent of your yearly expenditure of time and effort. Intellectual self-defense, something we need every day, all day. We need it to protect ourselves from ill information. We need it to access the healthy information that we need. And we need to do that consistently, fluidly, dynamically, just going on through life. That's a thing we need to do that schooling didn't prepare us for. Back in 2010, this was news to people. It was news to people that critical thinking was removed from our education system in order to make it into schooling. And so what we had done was we saw various pieces of evidence on the landscape, and Paul and I came together and we wrote a script for a pilot series. It was for a series pilot that took 6 months to make, and it was called What You've Been Missing. And it's about 2 hours. So we're going to play an hour tonight. We're going to play an hour next week because I know 99% of the audience never heard of it, never seen it, never got to appreciate it, and you weren't there at the Autonomy screening last Friday. However, that all being said, I do have a link over here someplace. We have an Autonomy screening this Friday. I should tell you guys about it. Let's see. I got to go back because I pressed a button that made it go on a different browser page. That's the workbook. Here you go. AutonomyScreenings.com. This coming Friday, my new 2-hour masterclass, Fear is Optional, How to Choose Courage and Create Your Future. Because, first off, everybody likes a good growth experience. We've been watching movies together on Fridays. It's a good opportunity to help outgrow the status quo and learn some methods, some tools, some strategies and tactics on overcoming fear. It's free because I think it's the first step for everybody. If you can't be free of your fears and those frustrations that come along with not understanding or having a method to learn things, you're not going to have much freedom in your life. Like, that's the first step. And from there, it frees you up to take action and risk some failure to get the things you need and be able to build your skills. But if you can't get off the first square because you're scared or you have learned helplessness or scarcity mentality, you're not going to be able to be making any moves in the game that are constructive and in your benefit, right? You're not writing your own script in life. If you're living subservient to irrational fears, right? There is a place in fear that relates to freedom and it helps you preserve freedom. These irrational fears that they've instilled upon us through the indoctrination process, they're not useful. They don't help you defend your freedom. They actually cause you to lose your freedom. So it's the first place we want to draw a line in the sand and say, no further. We're going to say no fear, no fear, no fear. We're going to learn how to evict fear. And that's a big part of the solutions to the things we were pointing out in the 2010, what you've been missing. So while back then we saw what was going on, we saw the problem, we got to the root causes, and we're pointing toward, hey, somebody needs to implement these solutions. There needs to be a comprehensive, conscious curriculum that helps people reinstill the critical thinking, creative problem solving, the ability to see a problem, analyze it, overcome it, conquer it, and keep on moving toward your goals. So I think that's a fundamental part of being an American or just a free person any place on the planet. And if you don't know how to deal with those things between your ears, you're going to have a tough time navigating reality and other people who also don't know how to navigate such things between their ears.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures. They're hosting videos, they're maybe even doing Q&As, and these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happen. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come